I've been in business for over 40 years, so it's been a long journey. It's been a journey which, when I look back on it, has had a lot of high points, but at the end of the day, I think I can say that I've arrived where maybe I wasn't even expecting to be. My journey began as a housewife and an opportunity and an enthusiastic family that supported my madness. It started with the opening of the hospitality industry in the Maldives in 1976, and the opportunity actually just fell into my lap. We met this person from the Maldives, a French gentleman who was one of the first resort operators in the Maldives. They had no fresh food. They were looking for fresh produce, and Sri Lanka being the closest destination, it looked like it was possibly the best place to come to Sri Lanka for their produce. So at that stage, it was sort of a fun thing to do, and we started exporting fresh and perishable goods to the resorts as per their orders. So that's where my journey started, and I don't think the name entrepreneur was even a buzzword then. I was just another person trying to start out a new business. So the word entrepreneur and all the connotations of that only struck me maybe 10 or 15 years later, when I realized that I'd embarked on something that was unusual, unique, but most importantly, not risk averse. I mean, that is the essence of being an entrepreneur, which is to be mindful of the pitfalls and yet take decisions which can impact with a certain risk element. And of course, you have to do what you can to mitigate those risks. My journey has been one of several firsts. We were the first company to export fruit and vegetables out of Sri Lanka, and it just has been the first people to ever use air freight for fresh and perishable products, the first company to use a cold chain. So it's been a journey of firsts, and it's been, as I look back on it, a very satisfying and successful journey, I'd say. We've been the benchmark for a lot of companies who have come in after that. What were the biggest challenges we faced? You know, the part of being a female entrepreneur came later. The first challenges that we faced was production. The first challenges that we faced was the need to have backward integration into the growing, into the production base. And it was not something that you could, it wasn't like an industry where you put yarn at one end and got a sock at the other end. It was an industry where you went back into what was essentially Sri Lankan, and to hone that product to match the export demands. And that never stops. It's a continuous process. We never stop reinventing production. We never stop reinventing the industry. It also means looking at cold chains. It also means specialty packaging. So those would have been the challenges in growing the business, and that continues to change. As a female entrepreneur, I think women in agriculture has always been the backbone of it, but not at the front end. So it meant going back into farmlands, it meant setting up training centers, it meant doing workshops, and so that would have been a challenge. But you know, when you're in the thick of something, you don't see it as being something different. It's only when it's over and you think, you know what, I think I did something different to what other people do. And previously, we also have broken the backbone of the middle market, the mafia that controlled the farmers' produce. 70% of our business is working directly with growers. So to get the best of the product, you need to go back to the farmland. And of course, the other part of it is the interaction with the Department of Agriculture, the Ministry of Agriculture, compliance, plant quarantine. And those are all things that have developed in the 40 years, because when we started, a lot of those different organizations were not quite as active then as they are now, and how important they are to us today. So in governance, there's a lot of ladies in it, and it's really very easy to work with women. We employ a lot of women also. So I don't see it as having been challenges. I don't think it would have been different if it was a man, but maybe it was unusual that it was a woman. So that's where I stand on that. That has been an amazing experience for me. 7 years ago, as I mentioned to you, we got our ISO certification, and we also realized that there were huge gaps in what the international market would require and where we were. And at that stage, I went to our traditional bankers who had been with us previously and said to them, look, I need to buy land, I need to build a factory, I've got the blueprint for everything ready, so I need the funding. And to DFCC's credit, at that point, I was looking at a consortium of bankers, because not everybody believes in fruit and vegetables. You know, it is a much higher risk than it would be to run a business of an industry. And nobody had done this. There was no blueprint, there was no benchmark. But it was a concept that I knew had to happen. And we went between different banks, and I must say we did not look at DFCC at that time, because I assumed that the banks that we had worked with up to then would understand, and yet they were so conservative in their thinking that it just took, we never seemed to be getting answers. And at that stage, and I became aware of DFCC's branch at Navala. And it was a purely an impulse phone call I made saying, look, we have a project, I'd like to talk to somebody, when can I come in? And they said, look, you don't need to come in, we will come and meet you. And at that time, they sent 2 people, it was not frightening, they came, they chatted with us, and then we went on. And you know what, other banks had taken over 4 months to process. DFCC had it up and running for me. Within 6 weeks, they told me yes, and by 8 to 9 weeks, I was good to go. And to me, the fact that DFCC believed in us, they held our hand. We had a cost overrun because of floods in the area, which caused various reasons for us to strengthen our boundaries, where we had a cost overrun, and we never, we always had, yes, they had to do their due diligence, they had to make the right decisions, but both the manager of the bank and the general manager for the time of that area, they were always so supportive of us. And it's been a very humbling experience for me that somebody actually believed in us when the others were all punching numbers, and it was a true development bank activity that got us to where we are. So that's where we are today. I think it's been a good partnership. So, firstly, don't expect it to happen overnight. What I do find with a lot of young people is that if they don't find the result they're looking for within a couple of years, they tend to get disheartened. I've had a lot of lows, lots of highs, but there have been times it's been a slow process. Do not think that it would have been different if it was a man, because today I believe every bank, every business organization is supportive of women entrepreneurs, but it also doesn't mean that you're going to have an open door just because you're a female. You're no different. They will evaluate you with the very same the same dynamics that they expect of anybody else. It is difficult sometimes to be a female in business because you do have other priorities, family demands, and I think it's very important to have a bit of a backup team behind you. But my advice is, get your business plan, run it past people who will actually tell you the pitfalls that you should expect. Because if you don't expect pitfalls, you're not prepared when it hits you. I mean, it may be that you've thought of something and it doesn't happen, and that's wonderful. But if it does, you need to have a good business plan. You need to also have a good relationship with your relationship manager at the bank, because if you don't, you get kind of frustrated. So all in all, my advice to entrepreneurs is have your business plan, have your backups. And if you are a woman entrepreneur, it's a little important to think through your personal life and how you are going to not be different to a man in a working environment. For me, the safety nets you need. Maybe it's also good to have a few other women around you who can pick up the pieces if you're out, because you've either had a family commitment or something that a man in business wouldn't need to deal with. But otherwise, I think just your determination and, as I said, a good business plan.